bringing you my top 3 fades and sleeper picks for this week's Shriners Children's Open. We're going to cover some of the most overhyped players in DFS this week, my fades, as well as some of the golfers being a little bit overlooked in my opinion, my sleeper picks. The goal here is to help you guys avoid some of the popular plays that I don't necessarily think pull through for you this week, as well as giving you some sneaky options to target that I think have a very good chance to contend that aren't garnering much ownership. On top of the regular content that we already have posted here on the channel, such as my core plays and course breakdown, we also have a live stream tonight at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, going over everything player pool wise, ownership, some game theory stuff, of course any live Q&A that you have, so link will be in the description for that. I recommend you guys stop by. With that out of the way, let's hop into the fades for the Shriners. And now for the fades. At number 3, we have Cameron Tringale in that mid $8,000 range. He's not getting an insane amount of ownership at just 8.8%, but he's truly an enigma when it comes to DFS golf. He's somebody who has great shots gained metrics, somebody who seemingly fits every single golf course that we see ourselves on, but he finds himself priced around much stronger options this week, like Patrick Reed, Jason Kokrak, Joaquin Niemann, who make much more sense and have actually finished off golf tournaments. We've seen Tringale get off to these hot starts, 6-7 under, first rounds, second rounds, that kind of thing, and then completely fall off. It's like the pressure gets to him, he's unable to close, that kind of thing. And in a DFS format, especially when you find your guy priced in this high 8K range, even the 9K range, they have to be able to at least close a top 5. And we haven't seen that from Tringale, even with all of these great shots gained metrics. And the one asset that you can say that Tringale does possess is going to be his putting game. But bent grass is his worst surface, and it's not even close. So to expect him to come out here and ride that putter is not really going to happen, and that's why he's a fade there at number 3. And number 2, we have Paul Casey, the poster boy for this video, at a Draftkings price of $8,900. I have him projected for a lot more ownership. They're at 17.6%, and he's not necessarily somebody that we're really looking for in terms of a course fit. He has great ball striking. That's going to fit any venue that he finds himself at. And in terms of his reliance on the irons to set up his scoring, that's not what we're looking for. You typically want somebody at TPC Summerlin that can fill it up with the putter, people that have a more well-rounded game. And for Paul Casey, that's not what we found. If we take a look at how he's played over his last 24 measured rounds, he's losing a third of a stroke per round with his putting. He's also losing around the green and only gaining nearly a third of a stroke off the tee, which is much lower than what we're used to seeing from him. So even though the approach play has looked great, it's kind of carried him of late. Real concern here are the splits on bent grass, and he's typically right around a neutral player in terms of his putting, slightly positive on bent grass, on Bermuda grass, slightly negative on POA, that kind of thing. But when we take a look at his splits on bent, they're horrible. He loses at least 0.3 strokes to his baseline, a little bit more depending on the type of time frame that we use, that kind of thing. So somebody who doesn't really have the type of skill set I'm looking for here at TPC Summerlin, also lacks the elite putting upside, especially in terms of bent grass splits. But at number 1, we have Brooks Koepka, the most expensive player on this slate at $11,100. I don't like the ownership at 12.6%. It's not really too high of a number, but it's just the kind of skill set that he has that I'm trying to fade here. But he's been his normal self with his ball striking. We've seen that with his ball striking numbers, especially over the last 24 rounds. But when we take a look at his short game, that's when I start to get extremely concerned. He's losing 0.36 shots gained putting per round, also losing nearly a quarter of a stroke per round around the greens. Both stats rank top 5 in importance this week, particularly putting being number 1, which is a real concern when you have the most expensive player on a slate. Typically, I'll give players a pass for one of those two things, especially if they're one of the better players in the world. But for Brooks Koepka, having both as an absolute issue, as something that we have to worry about this week, is not something that I'm really excited about. So much like Tringale and Casey, bent is by far his worst surface for putting. In fact, it's the only surface where he actually loses strokes putting or is average. So with his price, with his ownership, he's a clear fade for me this week. And now for our sleeper picks. At number 3, we have Russell Henley at a Draftkings price of $7,900. Not getting much ownership at all. Absolutely love that at 6.1%. And he's had everything going of late except for the putter, which is definitely a scary proposition if he can turn that around, especially considering that normally the putter is his asset. It's his weapon. It's what he's able to lean into, especially when he has it clicking. So if we take a look at his metrics over his last 24 rounds, he's gaining 0.3 strokes off the tee per round, also gaining 3/4 of a stroke per round on approach, which is really the main thing we're looking at here with Henley, an approach specialist, somebody who at TPC Summerlin is going to give himself plenty of opportunities to score. Of course, the issue which I've already alluded to, he's losing 0.23 shots gained putting on the greens per average, which is something that I do expect him to flip. Typically one of the better putters on tour, typically top 10 in that category, and he's been hitting the ball much better than he has in quite some time. In fact, this is one of the best stretches of form he's ever had, period. I mean, he's been contending in some massive fields, some major championships even. So he ranks as a top 20 course fit this week, and at his ownership, he's a great leverage play in GPP tournaments. At number 2, we have Jason Kokrak, $800 more at $8,700, and only getting slightly more ownership, still at single-digit ownership. And he was a hot commodity right about this time last year, especially so after he took down the CJ Cup at Shadow Creek, another Las Vegas course. Perhaps it's his familiarity with the area. He is sponsored by MGM. He comes into town a ton, plays a lot of the golf courses here. And now that we head to TPC Summerlin right down the road, I expect that kind of skill set to translate very well. Despite not making much noise over his last 24 rounds, he's still doing very well in terms of his shots gained numbers. He's gaining in every category except around the green. Those include gains of 0.43 shots gained on approach and 0.39 shots gained putting per round. Those are both top 20 numbers in the field, both numbers that I'm really taking a close eye on in terms of course fit as well. If we take a look at his birdie or better percentage number, and the reason why we're looking at birdie or better percentage is we expect a winning score in the 23 to 25 under range. This is obviously barring win, but we've seen that the last 2 years. We've actually seen playoffs at minus 23, so it hasn't just been one horse getting out there. So for Jason Kokrak, he was a top 10 birdie maker on tour in 2020, and if we take a look over the last 24 rounds, he's number 5 in the field in that metric. So somebody who, despite not having some great finishes of late, has looked very good with his metrics, is familiar with the area, also at a very good ownership and price there. So no-brainer for me, great sleeper pick there at number 2. But our number 1 sleeper pick this week is a little bit higher owned than I like going typically, but Abraham Ancer at $10,400 is an amazing play this week. Somebody who I expected to be right around 20, even 25% owned come the beginning of the week, but now that he's still hovering right around 15%, he's a smash play. Somebody who fits this course to an absolute T, and he's completely being overlooked at that ownership level. I mean, this guy's typically somebody being owned in the 25 to 30% range, no matter the golf tournament. I think the price tag might be a little bit scary to people, but not only is he a great course fit, like I mentioned, we're going to get into some of the metrics here that make him such a great course fit, but he's also arguably in the best stretch of form in his entire career. I mean, he had a win there at the WGC, a few top 5 finishes, and over his last 24 rounds, he's gaining across all 4 major statistical categories, which is not something we typically say about Abraham Ancer. Can be a little bit shoddy with his around the green play, doesn't always gain off the tee, but over that stretch, those gains include 0.69 shots gained ball striking per round, so showing he's definitely had a lot of control over that golf ball, but most notably, nearly a stroke gained per round with his putting, which is just absolutely ridiculous. Somebody who's been absolutely striping it. Just to give you an idea, he's gaining 0.93 shots gained putting over that stretch, so very close to that 1 shot per round number. Over that same stretch, he's also number 9 in the field in birdie or better percentage. Also, again, just like Jason Kokrak, somebody who loves filling it up in terms of birdies, and his best surface by far on tour is bent grass. So he pretty much has everything going for him this week. He gains an additional 0.19 strokes per round on that surface. So Abraham Ancer checking all the boxes for me, so much so that he makes probably at least half my lineups this week. That's all we've got for our fades and sleeper picks for this week. Go ahead and let me know down in the comments who your biggest fade this week is. I'd love to get some debate going down there. Also, go ahead and let me know who your biggest sleeper pick is. Obviously for me, my biggest fade going to be Brooks Koepka. Biggest sleeper pick, and it's not even close, going to be Abraham Ancer. But I'd love to hear what you guys have for me. As always, guys, I really enjoy your guys' viewership. If you guys haven't already liked the video, if you guys haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you go ahead and do so. Thanks again. I'll see you guys tonight for that live stream. Again, just a reminder, it'll be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time, going over everything you need to know here for the Shriners. So until then, see ya, and good luck with all of your lineups for this weekend.